everyone. This is Hannah Fletcher with MUSE TV, and I am speaking with Dylan Sires, the director of this ChiefsAholics documentary. I'm so excited to be speaking with you. First of all, congratulations on the success of this, and also we'll get to this in a bit. But the Chiefs are Super Bowl bound again. How are you feeling with everything and just where everything's at right now for you in terms of your career and whatnot?
Well, thank you so much for having me on, and I feel really good. I'm actually a Chiefs fan, so I'm very happy they're back in the Super Bowl, trying to get the three-peat done.
Yeah, that's right. 3 feet. That's very true. I think they're at a point now, I believe that they actually have a record, right? For 3 years in a row like that. I don't think anybody's ever accomplished this before, if I'm correct.
Nope, no back-to-back Super Bowl appearances. Well, at least they've won two, and then now the third one. So yeah, I
Yeah,
do think the
definitely.
Bills lost four in a row though in the '90s.
That's right. That's what my dad's like a big NFL fan. So he was giving me all of the lowdown on everything. That's what he was saying too. So look at that. Here we go. Here we go again. Well, I just want to say congratulations on all of your success with everything. I would love to kind of take it back to the beginning with you and find out a little bit more of your origin story before we dive into this documentary. Where did you find the passion and the love for obviously for creating, for directing? And also, I'm a huge nerd. I love documentaries personally. So where did the documentary space too? Where did that come into play for you in terms of your career? Whatever you would like to speak to.
Yeah, so I started off in news as a photog, uh, and what we would call videographer now, right? And so that's where I kind of got the love for breaking news and like, breaking new news on a story that's developing. And, that kind of led me to a case that had happened while I was working at KWWL, which is the station in Waterloo, which is where I'm from. And that was the case of these two girls had went missing and were murdered, Lyric and Elizabeth. And so I had done a documentary about that for 7 years. And then that came out this past August on another streamer. But that's where my love of documentary started was, um, like in news is so bite-sized, right? Or documentary, you get to kind of really dive into the details and then also at the same time pull back to the larger ideas of what's happening in a story. And I love that, diving into details, but at the same time, backing up and trying to assess what you have here.
Definitely. What I think is very interesting is the timeline from what I've understood in terms of you guys shooting with everything that's been going on. It seems like you guys had a very interesting perspective, which not a lot of, at least not a lot of documentaries that I've watched had. You kind of get to go in accompaniment with like real time kind of situations playing down in terms of this documentary versus a lot of documentaries. It's retelling, the subject of the documentary may not be able to be on camera, or may be able to be on camera but can't speak to certain things. You had a very unique situation here. Talk to me about what that was like from a director's perspective.
I mean, it's fascinating. It's awesome. It's supercharged. You're like it. You don't know what's going to happen next, and I really love that. Because like you're actually filming something develop versus like you're not telling a story that's already happened through a talking head, which I love those docs.
Right.
Some of my favorite docs are talking head docs, but this is like, this is happening in real time. It's developing. It's like if you don't have enough batteries on you, you're going to be, yelling at your producer, like, where's the batteries at? Like, we got to keep filming here. There's stuff happening, and you never know when you need to be recording and when you don't need to be recording. So you just try to record all the time with as much with the resources that you have. So yeah, I love like, you know, filming verite and following and stuff like that. It's yeah, it's the best.
Definitely. I think it's very neat that you are able to have all of this kind of unfolding while you're filming as well. What did this process look like in terms of directing? I think a lot of people don't really understand the idea of directing when it comes to a documentary. So what was it that you were very focused on when approaching this project? What story did you want to tell? What were some non-negotiables that you had going into this process? Walk me through whatever was going on through your mind from pre-production all the way through to post-production as well.
Yeah, so the first thing that I wanted to do when when I saw the stories and I wanted to do a doc, it was like, all right, this guy's probably a serial bank robber. He's probably done multiple bank robberies. It's like, I want to get that confession on camera, or I want to see his reaction. Like, that's what I wanted to do. And so it was all about going under the guise of something else. But it turned out we weren't able to actually ever get a real sit down interview with Xavier, our subject. So
Mhm.
we never got like the confession we wanted. And but at the same time, we were following him with these bets, right? And at the time it was like rumored that he was homeless, or he had written on a pauper's affidavit that he was homeless. So we didn't know if he really was, because he had lied about everything else. What would make, why would he not lie about this as well? So he had these bets. He said he was homeless, said that he knew he was going to be in some kind of trouble. He's going away for a long time, and he needed these bets to pay off so that his family could have some money while he's away in jail. And I thought that to be like, uncut gems, or, you know, uh, yeah, it just felt like this is like the premise of a movie, like a narrative film, right? It's like this, everything depends on this game, like we need this money. I need to take care of my family. And it's like, oh, that's intense. So, yeah, I was very happy about like this other story taking over what my initial idea of the story was. And I think it
Definitely.
just
I
makes it
think
a,
that's so unique. Go ahead, keep
Mhm.
going.
No, no,
Sorry.
that's exactly what I was going to say. It just made it a much more interesting story.
Absolutely. What do you think the fans, especially, I think it's just fascinating as well with I mean, again, I understand football to a certain extent. I grew up in a football house, but my dad pulls Pittsburgh across the board. So, I mean, I know a lot about like Steelers, but I don't know a ton when it comes to like the other side of like football and everything. And I think it's very fascinating, even watching the arc of the Chiefs becoming more relevant and more popular and then doing extremely well. And then obviously all of this timing out as well. What do you think that the fans are really like thinking and processing as all of this is unfolding? And then obviously with you being able to create this documentary as well, have you received any form of like fan input, insight, anything like that? Like, are you being privy to any of these reactions personally that are going on in regards to everything that's playing out really at the same time?
Yeah, I mean, the fans that we interviewed for the film, my
Right.
producer was able to get some of their messages, and they thought we did a great job, because the whole idea while we were filming is like we're trying to get the story beneath the story, right? Like, what's the story that we have this surface story that's happening online, but like what's actually happening? Like, how did the cops put together the pieces that, how do they figure out, Xavier Babudar was ChiefsAholic? How did the internet sleuths figure it out that that this unknown Chiefs fan that was like so mysterious was Xavier Babudar? So, yeah, that was it was we couldn't have made it without the fans, right? We had to
Right.
have their input. And so I think to the people who knew the story or had witnessed it in real time, were a part of Chiefs Kingdom, um, we added extra elements that they did not know, right? Which I think is very important context. And um, yeah, it's pretty wild. So, and I think I lost your question in there too. So I apologize.
You answered it. You did great. You
Yeah.
you did exactly you totally answered it. I'm curious to ask you, so obviously we know the fate of Xavier right now, and we know that time is due to be served, and that is the process of what that looks like for him for quite some time now. Would there ever be an interest in potentially picking up cameras and continuing on with like a part two of the docu-series? Like maybe once Xavier would be, I don't know in terms of all of the legal what will end up happening. Obviously, we know that there's a sentence time frame, but once that sentence is served, would there ever be an interest to pick up cameras again or anything like that? Or has your brain even went that far? I don't know. I'm just purely curious out of my own idea of that.
Yeah, yeah. So my brain hasn't went that far yet, because he's serving 17 and a half years federally. And
Yeah.
then the state of Oklahoma filed a writ of habeas corpus to take the body of one Xavier Babudar out of federal custody. So he's now back in Tulsa County, and he's going to stand. He's either going to do I would assume a plea deal or a trial for the Bixby bank robbery. So he's going to get additional time beyond his 17 and a half years.
Yes.
So he's going to be in prison for quite some time, I believe.
Yeah, I can't believe it. I've always thought that this story is just so interesting and just the idea of him and how obviously how you were mentioning that the fans kind of came into play and they were able to assist and everything like that to be able to kind of put together this whole idea of who this person is and for it to ultimately end up working is it's just crazy to me. When you had the opportunity to be able to jump onto this project, what was your initial thought? What was your initial hope? And even as a Chiefs fan yourself, I'm sure that there's a certain sense of pride that you've had kind of coming into this project and a certain sense of like being able to, bring the truth to light and really tell this story.
I had like what I hoped for was to interview Xavier and get him to
Mhm.
admit to or somehow
Yeah.
divulge that he had been robbing banks, right? That was my hope because it was just people had said it online, right? Just because people say stuff online doesn't make it true, right?
Right.
And when I met Xavier, he was like, no pun intended, he was disarming because he's like really big, he's got a lot of muscles, but at the same time he's kind of goofy. He's got braces, and so he kind of takes you aback. You're kind of like, oh, okay, so maybe I need to reassess who I thought this person was based upon, what I was reading in social media because he was very polite, he was very well spoken, right? And yeah, it just threw me for a tizzy to some degree, right? So yeah, I think I might have lost your question in there again. I apologize.
You're totally fine. No, I was kind of wanting to know, and that was going to segue me into my next question was the idea of like actually sitting down with somebody and again having this preordained idea. Again, the internet is the internet.
Mhm.
We know that it's not always accurate. And oftentimes it's very much not. But then having the opportunity to really sit down and be able to see somebody like this. And is there any fear or is there any like intrigue or like what is going through your mind being able to sit down and really speak to somebody who has performed a very intense, elaborate crimes over the course of time? What is your just like even just a human kind of like physical response being able to sit down with somebody like that? And obviously, of course, you're hoping and wanting for any form of a confession would be very assistive in the process as well. But what's going through your mind just as a human at that point?
Yeah, so at the time, right, he was out on bail awaiting trial. So, in my mind, you're innocent until you're proven guilty, right? Even though like the facts were completely stacked against him and like, a reasonable person cannot be like, yeah, yeah, right. He probably did it. But at the same time, I have to like keep my mind frame in an objective place, Um, so, but at the same time, you're like, you can see him when he's talking, when he's on his phone and he's jumping around during the game. You're like, well, if he did do this shit, like, and I didn't mean to swear, I apologize. If he did
You can
this,
swear,
right?
okay.
When he's jumping up and down watching the Super Bowl, and I'm like, man, if he did this, like, he would be a scary SOB to, have come run at you with a gun, right? And get,
Yeah.
because he's tall, he's taller than me, he's big, so yeah, I mean that's a tough question. I just know life is complicated, and to be
Mhm.
a documentary filmmaker, you have to explore the gray areas, right? You can't just be black and white, right?
Right.
Um, because I mean, here's Xavier, has lived in a car isn't since he was probably in elementary school. I don't think he finished elementary school when he started living out of a car with his mother and his brother. So he sees the world differently, and his morals and his ethics are completely different from someone who went K through 12 and into college, right?
Right.
And I saw that as an opportunity to explore, what that was. And to him, it was like he was all about his family. Everything was about his family. Every time we saw him, we talked to him. It 2 or 3 times he would always mention his family and how much
Wow.
they meant to him. Yeah. I mean, you know, that doesn't make him a good person, right? He violently robbed banks and scarred people. Like we had gotten some of the discovery files and they would show pictures of where he would put the gun in when he would rob these banks and they would be bruised, right?
Yeah.
So you think you have a loaded gun and someone's slamming it into your chest or your back, causing a bruise on your skin. I mean, they were very violent bank robberies. So, once again, it's just about, being a documentary filmmaker, you want to explore the gray area. You want to know why, what, cause and effect, right?
Definitely. My final question to you, it actually does kind of have to do with just the idea of broadly being a documentary filmmaker. If somebody were in the position of wanting to be exactly that, to be a documentary director, filmmaker, any of the sort, what would be a piece of advice that you would give to somebody that was looking to dive into that? And the advice even may be something that you've kind of picked up and accrued along the way of your journey as well. But what would be that nugget of wisdom that you would give to somebody looking to be like you?
I mean, the camera on your phone is good enough to shoot a film on. I would say go work in TV news. It makes you quick, fast, and efficient with your decision making. Where, like if, when I go work on commercials or something else and I see how slow like other types of productions are, I mean, it like infuriates me how slow the decision process is sometimes. Like it's like, oh my God, come on, it's because I come from news. I'm just like, oh, quick, fast, efficient, let's go. So I would say try some TV news work, as doing some being a videographer, following a reporter, editing packages, like breaking news is important, right, for our society so that we know what's going on. And it teaches you a lot about what are the laws that you need to adhere to as you film. And that's something that's helped me out in my documentary life. So TV news, and then your phone's a great camera. You can make a film on that.
I love it. Well, I just want to say thank you so much for speaking with us. Congratulations with all of your success on your documentary, but obviously with your other documentary that released on Max. Am I correct? Or
Yeah,
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 Max, I
yep.
believe. Yeah. So congratulations with that as well. And very excited for everything that's to come for you. And I just want to say thank you again for spending some time with us. I would love to give you the opportunity to plug any social media, anything like that, just so all of our followers can stay up to date with everything that's going on pertaining to you.
I really don't do that much social media. I have like a Facebook, but I don't really do social media.
Perfect.
It's because I'm
That's
not good
totally
at it. It's because I'm not good at it. It's
no.
not because I'm against it or anything like that. I just, yeah.
I'm right there with you. I have like my main account and like that's about it. So I'm right there with you. But thank you so much again for speaking with us. Appreciate you and appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you very much.